Hi, my name is Mariana and I am the Early Adopter Analyst. And today I'm going to dive into who and what is the early adopter. So stay with me. So early adopters are known to be the first ones who try, learn, and use new technologies before it's used on the day-to-day normality by the main population. And so early adopters, they're curious and excited for the experience of learning and using new technologies before others. So by trying out new products, they're the ones that are going to be able to tell the main population about the product, therefore making themselves influencers amongst their group. So it's important for us to identify who the early adopter is, since they're going to be the ones setting the standard to the rest of the population. So we want to figure out who that person is, communicate to them properly in order to make sure that our product or our solution is able to fix the early adopter's problem and therefore leading it to the main masses. And now we're going to dive into what the problem and the solution is. So as soon as we know what problem our early adopter is facing, we can come back with them with a solution based on our vision and mission statement on whatever company we're working on. And so this gives us a clear path of who to target and what our early adopter is facing and what kind of solution we're able to give them. Now to dive in a little bit deeper into the early adopter report, we're going to look at our intake goals. So these are goals that we're looking at to take action. So we want to aim properly according to their characteristics to be able to identify each early adopter's behavior. So in this report, we're going to dig into the psychology. What makes them tick? They have a problem and you want to give them a solution. You want to figure out what they feel and what they believe in. We're going to create an idea of what type of character they are, see what they have in common, what piques their interest, what's the human emotion behind the influence. And from there, we can now gather a little bit more about our early adopter that will come in handy in our research. Now in this section of the early adopter report, I dive in a little bit deeper. In this section, I use a famous psychology test that determines a little bit more information about the early adopter and what type of personality they have. And so this personality type test will determine how the early adopter perceives the world, how they communicate, and how they see a certain problem. This gives us leverage and an advantage to understand how the early adopter may think and behave in certain situations depending on the results of the personality test. So now that we know who the early adopter is, we can now scout them out and do interviews. In this section, I like to do interviews one-on-one with the early adopter. This gives us insight on why they do what they do and how they do it, what they're valuing, and what the problem is. This gives us insight a little bit more about what they feel and what they believe in, and how we can tackle any obstacles that they're having so we can give them the right solution. Using social media, I'm now able to dive in a little bit deeper. So depending on your early adopter, I will look at different social media platforms. And so from there, we get to know a little bit more about what your early adopter is engaging with. What are they liking? What are they commenting? What are they posting? What are they sharing? What are they so passionate about? What do they care about? This gives us insight on how to communicate with them and to make sure whenever we're communicating with them, we're able to strike those interests, those engagements, and as well as those values that they have. After putting these different sections of the early adopter together, we can now create the overall persona of who your early adopter is. These are some main characteristics of what your early adopter may look like, depending on who we're aiming at. And now that we know who the early adopter is, their characteristics, what they're engaging with, and their personality type, we can now create a marketing guide to better communicate and strategize to your early adopter. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope to look for your early adopter soon.